Today we're tackling a question that I think hits home for a lot of English learners. Am I really fluent? You know that feeling?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
You might feel okay with the grammar or the vocab, but there's that little voice, right?
Exactly. And our dive today, looking at the material you pulled together, it suggests maybe that doubt comes from, well, an older view of fluency.
Right. The sources we looked at argue that true advanced comprehension, it goes way beyond just rules and word lists. It's about the subtleties.
The unspoken stuff.
Yeah, the unspoken layers, the cultural undercurrents. It's really focusing on the input side, on comprehension.
So it's less about crafting that perfect sentence yourself and more about actually getting the language as it's really used, all the messy, natural bits.
Precisely. Think of this discussion more like a guide, maybe, not a test. We're just trying to shine a light on those signals that show you already have a pretty sophisticated understanding.
I'll maybe point towards some, new goals.
Yeah, exactly. New things to aim for.
Okay, so our mission here is to unpack these, well, often kind of hidden signals, the things that show you're understanding English on a deeper level, more intuitively.
And that's how you shift from being, let's say, a skilled student of the language.
To actually participating, like being in the flow of English culture.
You got it. And the material highlights some key areas where this really shows up. We're talking humor, sarcasm, irony.
Oh, yeah, the tricky ones.
And idioms, cultural references, understanding all those different accents, and even dealing with that really fast sort of blended speech people use.
Okay, let's unpack this then. And for everyone listening, as we go through these, maybe reflect on your own experiences. Have you noticed these things? How did you feel? Let's start with the first big one.
So one of the first really clear markers the material points to is understanding implied meaning.
Ah, the classic reading between the lines, getting what someone means even if they don't spell it out.
That's exactly it. Grasping the message hidden under the literal words. It's often in the tone or the context, maybe even, what's not said.
Like the example you found, someone says, well, that was certainly interesting, but the way they say it.
Right. You immediately know interesting doesn't mean good interesting. It means, this was maybe bad or awkward or just not great. The tone flips it.
Or when you ask someone, how are you? And they just say, fine.
Exactly. Depending on how they say fine and what you know about their situation, it could mean absolutely not fine at all. You're interpreting the subtext.
I like that other example, too, about asking a colleague how that difficult project is going.
Oh, yeah, and they just sigh.
Yeah.
And change the subject.
Instantly, okay, not going well. Message received, loud and clear, even without words.
Right. Your brain is processing all those cues,
the
nonverbal, the context, and inferring the real meaning. And that skill, well, it comes from cultural know-how and real-world exposure, doesn't it? More than textbooks.
For sure. And it seems super important in, say, work settings, where maybe a suggestion isn't just a suggestion.
Definitely. A subtle hint might actually be a direct instruction in disguise. So if you find yourself consistently picking up on these things, the unstated opinions, the hints, the emotions, that's a really strong sign.
It shows you're processing the full communication, not just the words on the surface.
Exactly. A profound level of comprehension.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It really is like a whole other layer. So moving on to something that I think trips up a lot of people. Humor. Jokes, sarcasm, irony.
Yeah, understanding humor, especially the nuanced kinds, is often seen as a pretty high bar. And the material suggests it's because it's so tangled up with shared culture, subtle signals, and sort of unspoken assumptions.
Getting a joke in another language definitely feels like unlocking something. But yeah, sarcasm and irony, there's next level.
Sarcasm, as the sources define it, is basically saying the opposite of what you actually mean. And it usually comes with a specific tone or maybe a facial expression.
Like dropping your phone and saying, oh, fantastic, just what I want.
Spot on. If you hear that and know it's not real happiness, you've nailed sarcasm. You understood the intended meaning was flipped.
Right, and irony. The material described that as more situational.
Yeah, usually. It's about a contrast between what you'd expect and what actually happens. Or sometimes a contrast between words and reality. The classic example they gave was like a fire station burning down.
Because you expect them to be safe from fire. That makes sense.
Or maybe someone makes a plan meticulously and then something completely random ruins it. That contrast can be ironic. And the sources also touched on things like puns, wordplay.
Relying on double meanings.
Right. So why is getting humor like this such a key marker? Well, it shows you're processing English at a really sophisticated level. You're not just decoding words, you're analyzing intent, context, cultural norms almost instantly.
So if you find yourself laughing genuinely at the right moments, or you can usually tell when someone's just being sarcastic, that's a good sign.
It's a fantastic sign. It means you're plugged into those subtle layers of communication, the ones that build connection.
Okay, cool. Our next marker, this one's everywhere, figurative language. We're talking idioms and metaphors.
Oh, they are absolutely pervasive.
Yeah.
You can't have a normal conversation in English without bumping into them. And as the material stressed, the meaning is almost never literal. Understanding them shows real immersion.
Idioms are funny because the words themselves often give zero clues, like raining cats and dogs.
Exactly. You just have to know it means raining really heavily or break a leg for good luck.
Right. If someone tells you break a leg before you go on stage, you shouldn't be thinking about actually breaking your leg.
Hopefully not. Or others like hit the road meaning leave, bite the bullet meaning face something difficult, under the weather meaning sick. You get under the weather from context and convention, not the words themselves.
And metaphors are a bit different, right? Like time is money.
Yeah, metaphors make a direct comparison without using like or as. Time is money just frames time as a valuable, limited resource. Or he's a couch potato.
Meaning he's lazy, sits around a lot. Not that he's literally a potato.
Right. You're grasping that symbolic link. And the material really underlines that getting these requires, well, deep familiarity with the culture and how language gets used creatively.
So it's not just memorizing lists.
Not entirely. I mean, memorizing helps. But a key point raised was that a truly fluent speaker, faced with a new idiom or metaphor, can often make a pretty good guess.
How?
Using the context, the surrounding words, the situation. They become sort of language detectives on the fly.
Okay, I like that. So if you can navigate conversations with these kinds of phrases, understand what people mean without getting totally lost, that shows deep immersion.
You're comfortable playing in that non-literal shared space of the language.
Right. Okay, let's shift gears a bit more to the listening side. Variations in accent and dialect. English sounds so different depending on who's speaking.
It really does. And true advanced comprehension, according to the sources, means your understanding isn't just locked onto one accent, like maybe your teachers, or one type of media.
You need to be able to understand English spoken in lots of different ways.
Pretty much. The examples that came up were things like understanding Scottish English, or New York English, or Australian English, recognizing the speech despite the different lilts or rhythms.
So it's not about you sounding like them, but about your ear being flexible.
Exactly. It's about adapting, recognizing the core English sounds and patterns, even when the pronunciation of vowels or consonants or the rhythm is quite different. And knowing that dialects might have their own unique words or slang, too.
So if you can listen to people from different places, maybe different countries or even just different regions, and you can generally follow what they're saying.
That's demonstrating really high-level listening skills. Auditory comprehension and adaptability. It means your internal blueprint for English is strong and flexible.
That makes sense. It's robust. And that kind of leads naturally into the next point, which is another big listening challenge. Fast speech and connected speech.
Ah, yes. The native speakers talk too fast. Problem. The material explained it's often not just raw speed, though that's part of it. It's also how words naturally blend together and change sounds in everyday speech.
Connected speech, where the words aren't pronounced like separate items from a list.
Right. They flow together. The classic examples always mentioned are like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Or did you eat? Becoming did you eat?
Yeah, or I'm gonna go. Smushing into I'm gonna go. If you're trying to mentally hear every single distinct word as written, these blends are almost impossible.
But an advanced listener.
Their brain starts recognizing these blended chunks as familiar units, gonna, wanna, hafta. They hear the whole phrase or the intended meaning, not just distorted single words.
So your brain adapts to process these common shortcuts.
Pretty much. And this skill really only develops through lots of exposure to real natural speech movies, podcasts, actual conversations. If you find you can keep up reasonably well with faster conversations, or you understand phrases like, I'm gonna go, without having to consciously translate them.
You've cracked a really tricky part of real-world understanding.
Definitely. It shows efficient, holistic processing of spoken language.
Okay. Now, for something that feels like it mixes language and general knowledge, cultural references and allusions.
Yes, this one definitely steps outside pure linguistics. The sources really highlight that this requires a body of shared knowledge. Things like history, famous books or movies, pop culture, common experiences within English-speaking cultures.
And an allusion is when you refer to something indirectly, without spelling it out.
Exactly, like the examples given. Calling someone a real Romeo.
Instantly brings Shakespeare to mind, passionate, maybe a bit foolish in love.
Right, or calling something a real Cinderella story.
Means rags to riches, overcoming adversity. You get the whole idea just from the name because you know the story. These references are like shortcuts, relying on that shared background.
And you can't just look these up in a standard dictionary usually. You build up this cultural literacy over time through reading, watching things, just being exposed to the culture.
So if you hear a joke or a comment that hinges on one of these references and you get it,
it signifies a deeper integration. Your brain isn't just processing the words, it's connecting them to a wider cultural context. You're understanding things on a cultural level, too.
you're sort of in the club of shared knowledge.
In a way, yes. Which connects nicely to our next point, appreciating nuance and subtlety.
This sounds like getting the really fine shades of meaning.
It is. The material describes it as perceiving those delicate distinctions, the slight differences in meaning between similar words, or understanding implied intentions.
Okay, like the difference between someone saying they said something versus they promised it versus they vowed it.
Exactly. They all involve speaking, but vowed carries a much heavier weight, a stronger sense of commitment than just said. It's understanding that subtle scaling.
Or like there's so many words for happy, right?
Right. Understanding the difference between feeling, say, content versus pleased versus thrilled or ecstatic. They're all positive, but they convey different levels or types of happiness. It's not just happy, not happy.
The sources also mention understanding, like indirectness, especially in requests.
Understanding the social weight of phrasing, asking, I wonder if you could possibly help me, feels very different, much more polite and less demanding than just saying, help me.
Or understanding euphemisms, like saying someone is not really a team player.
Exactly. Recognizing that's a softer, more indirect way to say they might be difficult to work with. Grasping these subtleties takes a lot of exposure, really paying attention to word choice and phrasing in different situations.
So if you're picking up on these fine distinctions, the subtle ways people express things,
you're definitely demonstrating a sophisticated command of the language. You're getting the full picture, including the social and emotional layers.
Okay, last marker we dug into from the material, and this feels super practical. The art of inference.
Yes. This is maybe one of the most vital skills for navigating the real world because, let's face it, you're never going to know every single word.
So inference is about being a language detective.
That's a great way to think about it. It's your ability to figure out the meaning of an unfamiliar word or phrase by using the clues around it, the context.
Using what you do know to bridge the gap to what you don't know.
Precisely. The example that stood out was inferring the meaning of trajectory. Maybe you don't know the word, but if the sentence says, the company's trajectory was steeply upward, indicating rapid growth.
Okay, yeah. Steeply upward and rapid growth give you pretty strong clues. It must mean something like path or direction or trend.
Exactly. You deduced it. And this is absolutely crucial when you're listening, right? Because you can't just hit pause and grab a dictionary in real conversation.
Right, you can't.
So a skilled listener, or reader for that matter, uses the flow, the topic, the tone, everything around the unknown word to make an educated guess and keep moving. They trust their ability to figure things out.
And for reading, maybe using examples the text gives or synonyms nearby.
All part of the same skill set. And here's the key takeaway. If you find you can generally understand the gist, even with unfamiliar words, if you can figure out new vocabulary from context most of the time without constantly needing to stop.
That's a very strong sign of fluency.
Extremely strong. It shows your brain is processing English efficiently, holistically. You're not getting derailed by every little unknown thing. You're adaptable.
Wow. Okay, so summing up, these markers implied meaning, humor, figurative language, accents, fast speech, cultural references, nuance, and inference. These are the things the material points to as signs of really advanced English comprehension.
Yeah, they show you've moved beyond just sort of constructing sentences to truly understanding and interacting with the language at a much deeper, more intuitive level.
So if you were listening along and recognized yourself in many of these descriptions like, yeah, I usually get sarcasm, or I figured out that idiom, or I can mostly follow different accents, then seriously, take a moment to appreciate that.
Absolutely. You are very likely operating at a fluent or very near fluent level of comprehension. Celebrate that progress.
And conversely, if some areas felt like, ooh, nope, that one's still tricky for me, don't feel bad, see them as really clear signposts.
Exactly. They're actionable goals. Now you know specific things you can work on, maybe seek out more exposure to push your understanding even further.
Because fluency isn't really a destination you just arrive at, is it?
Not at all. It's a journey. Even native speakers learn new things constantly. The real power lies in that ability to adapt, to infer, to stay curious.
And the best tool for building all these intuitive skills, as the sources consistently suggest, seems to be just diving in.
Immersion. Authentic English. Movies, TV, podcasts, books, conversations with real people. That's where you absorb all these nuances naturally over time.
So embrace the real stuff, even if it feels challenging sometimes.
Definitely. Seek out different voices, different styles, and really pat yourself on the back for every time you realize, hey, I understood that subtle joke, or I got the meaning even though I didn't know that word.
Because as the insights from the material really drive home, reaching that deeper level of understanding, getting the hints, the shared context, the cultural bits.
It means you're not just studying English anymore. You're actually becoming a participant, a true participant in the cultural life of the language.
So what does all this mean for you listening? It probably means you're doing amazing work already. Keep that curiosity going. Keep seeking out real English and enjoy unlocking these deeper layers.
Thanks for listening. And if you found a video helpful, please hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so you never miss an episode, and share it with others who might benefit. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. So your feedback is really important to us. And if you want to continue learning right now, here in this playlist, you'll find helpful videos for English listening practice. You might want to watch it next. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.